Hey everyone, let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we're unpacking a really fascinating blueprint for optimizing your daily brain power. And look, we're not just talking about generic run-of-the-mill productivity hacks here. We're diving deep into the hard science of how specific everyday habits literally alter your brain chemistry to skyrocket your focus and help you manage stress.
So you know that feeling where you're battling brain fog all morning or you just completely crash in the afternoon? Well, we're going to look at the exact biological reasons why that happens. A lot of us just write it off thinking, oh, I'm just not a morning person. But honestly, the truth is usually much more mechanical. Your brain is essentially waiting for specific biological signals to wake up. And if you don't give it those signals, that fog is going to stick around and completely sabotage your best intentions.
Think about how most people start their day. They're lying in bed, grabbing their phone, just doom scrolling indoors. Essentially, they're waiting for this biological wake-up signal that, well, it just never arrives. High performers, though, they do not leave their alertness to chance. Instead, they use a specific chemical kickstart to seize the day. They deliberately trigger the exact neurochemicals required to power through complex tasks.
All right, let's get into Section 1, Morning Chemical Kickstart, Activating Your Neurochemistry.
Okay, get this. It turns out that just 30 seconds, literally half a minute, of cold water exposure at the end of your shower spikes your noradrenaline by up to 300%. I know, it sounds awful, but noradrenaline is the chemical responsible for focus and mood regulation. You are basically tripling your baseline before you've even had breakfast. And beyond that immediate focus boost, you're instantly training your brain that discomfort doesn't require a stress meltdown. That's an adaptation that follows you into the rest of your day.
Right after that shower, you need light. Your brain runs on a biological clock that's actually set by natural light hitting your eyes. So going outside for just 10 minutes within your first hour of waking triggers this vital cortisol pulse. And to be clear, this isn't that chronic, stressful cortisol. This is a healthy, activating pulse. It sets up your mood arc and your alertness for the whole day. Plus, brilliantly, it also anchors your sleep timing, which ensures you actually fall asleep that night. So that's two massive biological problems solved with one totally free habit.
Moving right along to Section 2, Owning Your First Hours, Protecting the Prefrontal Cortex.
Look, if you check your phone first thing in the morning, you're instantly kicking off a reactive dopamine cycle that can absolutely ruin your sustained focus for hours. The second you check a message, your thinking gets hijacked by someone else's agenda. So you've got to fiercely protect this no-input window. Keep the phone face down, no news, no podcasts. Just let your brain do its clearest, deepest thinking before it gets completely flooded with external stimulation.
Because of that, the absolutely crucial move here is to tackle your hardest, most important task first. Every single time you complete something difficult, your brain releases a hit of dopamine, which associates effort with reward. That's literally how you train intrinsic motivation. If you waste your best willpower on easy warm-ups and, other people's problems, by the time you actually get to the hard work, your tank is half empty and your brain has a dozen excuses ready to go. Do the hard thing first before the internal negotiations even start.
Next up is Section 3, Optimizing Midday Focus Cycles, Sustaining Your Momentum.
Here's the thing about focus. It does not operate in a flat line. Your brain actually runs on an ultradian rhythm. What that means is it needs roughly 90 minutes of laser-focused single-task work, followed by a real break. A lot of us just try to push through that natural dip in alertness by chugging caffeine, masking the exhaustion, and then we wonder why our work quality falls off a cliff by the afternoon. You need a real break. And I don't mean scrolling on your phone. I mean walking or just sitting without any input for 10 minutes to fully reset that cycle.
Now, when stress inevitably hits during your workday, your breathing naturally gets shallow, and that triggers a sort of biological panic loop. But this technique right here, the physiological sigh, is like a real-time override button. Check out the steps. It's just 2 quick inhales through the nose to reinflate your air sacs, followed by 1 long exhale through the mouth. That long exhale activates your parasympathetic nervous system, which is basically the brake pedal for stress. Your heart rate literally drops in seconds.
And when you hit that mental wall, because we all do at some point, don't just sit there staring harder at your screen. That is almost always the wrong move. Researchers at Stanford actually found that creative output jumps by an average of 81% while you're taking a walk. Think about that. Walking increases blood flow to the prefrontal cortex and releases BDNF, which is a protein that supports new neural connections. Your brain is still processing the problem in the background. So seriously, get up, walk for 10 minutes, and just let the answer arrive.
Okay, Section 4. Hacking the learning process, growth through strain.
You know how rereading your notes always feels super productive? Well, it turns out it mainly just creates an illusion of knowledge through familiarity, and familiarity is not the same as mastery, right? Active recall, which means closing the book and forcing yourself to pull that information back out from nothing, is way more difficult. But that mental strain is exactly the mechanism that produces a durable memory. In fact, researchers at Washington University found that students who used active recall retained 50% more material than those who just reread.
The brilliant physicist Richard Feynman completely hit the nail on the head here. He knew that trying to teach a concept out loud is the absolute fastest way to expose your own knowledge gaps. Because if you could only recognize the vocabulary words, you don't actually have the skill to apply that knowledge under pressure. Try explaining a new concept to someone using plain, simple language. Those little gaps you find when you stumble, those are the exact gaps that matter. Teaching literally forces your brain to build the actual structure underneath the surface of what you're trying to learn.
Let's dive into Section 5, Physical Tools for Mental Power, the Brain-Body Connection.
It's super interesting to see how different types of training actually impact the brain in completely different ways. Like cardio actively raises that incredible BDNF protein we talked about earlier. Meanwhile, strength training improves how efficiently your neurons use glucose. And if you do both at least 3 times a week, you actively prevent chronic cortisol from literally shrinking your hippocampus, which is your brain's memory center. In multiple clinical trials, doing this combination actually outperformed antidepressants for mild to moderate depression. It's a total game changer for memory, focus, and emotional regulation.
Which brings us to Section 6, the rest and reset routine, clearing the fog.
So taking a midday power nap is basically like hitting refresh on your brain because it clears out adenosine. That's the chemical that builds up while you're awake and causes that heavy mental fog. NASA actually studied this in pilots and found a 26-minute nap boosted performance by 34% and alertness by a full 100%. But listen, the absolutely crucial detail here is the duration. You really want to aim to keep it under 25 minutes. If you go over that, you risk entering deep sleep and you'll wake up groggy and cognitively worse off than before you lay down.
Then, at night, taking just 3 to 5 minutes to mentally recap your day is huge. It basically tells your brain what information actually matters, flagging it so it can be consolidated overnight. But honestly, none of this works without the ultimate high-leverage habit, waking up at the exact same time 7 days a week. When you shift your wake time on the weekends, it gives you social jet lag, which produces measurable impairments in your cognitive function. You've got to lock in that wake time every single day to anchor your circadian rhythm. So as we wrap up, remember that every single habit we've covered today is really just a tool for you to take back control of your biology. And knowing that intrinsic motivation is an actively trained chemical response, I want to leave you with this question. What is the one difficult task you're going to tackle tomorrow morning before your mental resistance even has time to load?